Welcome to the Secrets of the Bible channel. Why does the Bible mention unicorns? The unicorn is famously known as a mythological creature. The animal is mentioned throughout history in different civilizations that date back many centuries. The unicorn appeared in early Mesopotamian artworks, and it also was referred to in the ancient myths of India and China. They are featured as far back as the Classical Age, including the ancient Babylonians and the Indus civilization. In the King James Version of the Bible, there are several references to unicorns. They are mentioned in 5 Old Testament books: Numbers, Deuteronomy, Job, Psalms, and Isaiah. Isaiah 3:4-7. And the unicorn shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. Psalm 9:2-10. But my horn shalt thou exalt like the horn of an unicorn. I shall be anointed with fresh oil. Psalm 2:21. Save me from the lion's mouth, for thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorn. Psalm 2:9-6. He maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon, and Surion like a young unicorn. However, if you look at the original Hebrew text of the Old Testament, you will not find unicorns mentioned. Unicorns are only mentioned in the King James Version due to a mistranslation originating in the Greek Septuagint. This mistranslation has been corrected in most modern translations of the Bible, including the New International Version and the New King James Version. Take, for instance, Psalm 29:6. Psalm 29:6, King James Bible. He maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young unicorn. Psalm 29:6, New King James Version. He makes them also skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young wild ox. Psalm 2:9-6, New International Version. He makes Lebanon leap like a calf, Syrian like a young wild ox. In fact, the modern definition of unicorn is so far removed from the meaning of the original Hebrew word, re'am, that modern translations have opted to omit it altogether in favor of wild ox. Among other translations, wild ox is used in the NII, ESV, NKJV, and NRSV. Today, unicorns are often thought of as fantasy animals, used in fairy tales, often depicted as a white horse with a single spiraling horn erupting from its forehead, sometimes with wings. Legend also tells that their horns can purify poisoned water, such as the strength of their healing power. The unicorn is frequently seen as a symbol of purity, innocence, and power. They are also portrayed as proud, untamable creatures who are fiercely independent and famously difficult to capture or conquer. This depiction of unicorns has been propagated and pushed by different movies and fictional novels over the years, and has resulted in critics and scoffers questioning the validity of the Bible. A closer study of the Bible and ancient literatures shows us that the animal believed to be unicorns existed, just not in the magical way. The original English definition of unicorns can help us understand that they are not fantasy animals as some believe. According to the first edition of Webster's Dictionary in 1828, a unicorn is defined as an animal with one horn, the monoceros. This name is often applied to the rhinoceros. This definition makes no reference to any connection between a unicorn and a horse. Neither does it imply that unicorns are mythical animals or a sort of Greek myth. It clarifies that unicorns back then at least had a completely different meaning to the unicorns we know. Now, let us look at how the most recent version of Webster's Dictionary defines unicorns. We can see that it defines unicorns in 2 parts, 1A and 1B. Definition 1A is the definition we know now: a mythical, usually white animal, generally depicted with the body and head of a horse, with long flowing mane and tail, and a single, often spiraled horn in the middle of the forehead. Definition 1B. An animal mentioned in the Bible that is usually considered an aurochs, a one-horned rhinoceros, or an antelope. Moving on, it is important to note that the rhinoceros we know today is a 2-horned creature. To explain this, we have to go back again to the same 1828 dictionary definition of rhinoceros. A genus of quadrupeds or 2 species, one of which, the unicorn, has a single horn growing almost erect from the nose. When fully grown, this animal will reportedly measure 12 feet long. The bicornus is a different species with 2 horns. They are African and Asian natives. When the early 1800s were in effect, there were 2 species of rhinoceros. According to Noah Webster, The one-horned species was called unicorn, and the two-horned species was called bicornis. Re'em is the original Hebrew word for unicorn, as mentioned in the King James Version of the Bible. It is translated as monoceros in the Septuagint, while the Latin Vulgate interprets it as unicornus. Newer versions of the Bible uses wild ox in place of unicorn, since it shares similar attributes with the extinct animal and can give an almost exact description of it to the people in this dispensation. The original Hebrew word, re'em, refers to a beast with a horn. The term re'em is thought to refer to urochs or urus, large cattle that once roamed Europe and Asia. The ancestors of domestic cattle, urochs, stood over 6 feet tall. They vanished in the 1600s. The definition of urochs is also most consistent with how the Hebrew Bible uses the word re'em. The ancient world was well known for the strength and ferocity of the enormous creatures known as aurochsen. Both of these characteristics are frequently connected to the re'em in the Hebrew Bible. The term wild ox in the Bible typically denotes a person of great strength. God compares his own strength to that of a wild ox in Numbers 23, 22 and 24. 8. Numbers 23. 22 King James Version. God brought them out of Egypt. He hath as it were the strength of an unicorn. Numbers English Standard Version 23:22. God brings them out of Egypt, and is known for them like the horns of the wild ox. Numbers 2:4-8 King James Version. God brought him forth out of Egypt. He hath as it were the strength of an unicorn. He shall eat up the nations his enemies, and shall break their bones, and pierce them through with his arrows. Numbers 2:4-8 English Standard Version. God brings him out of Egypt, and is for him like the horns of the wild ox. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries, and shall break their bones in pieces and pierce them through with his arrows. There are certain places in the scriptures where we have the word, the horn of a unicorn. And there are some that reference the horns of unicorns. However, we now understand that the phrases are not contradictory. For instance, Psalms 92:10 says, "But my horn shalt thou exalt like the horn of an unicorn. I shall be anointed with fresh oil." In this passage, the Latin word for one-horned rhinoceros, the unicornus, is used. Conversely, Deuteronomy 33:17 represents the other species of rhinoceros which has 2 horns, this time bicornis. Let's consider the context of the passage more closely. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Several animals have gone into extinction, such as the Tasmanian tiger, the dodo bird, and many living creatures. Just as these animals used to exist. The historical existence of one-horned rhinos, unicorns, was only called into question due to the lack of physical evidence. Recently, evidence has come to light that ancient rhino species, Elasmotherium sibericum, known as the Siberian unicorn, due to its extraordinary single horn, likely lived alongside modern humans. Scientists believe it resembled more like a rhinoceros than a horse. Also revealed that they stood about 6 feet tall, measured 15 feet long, and weighed around 8,000 pounds, much larger than the horse we imagined them to be. Every time we see the word unicorn appear in the KJV Bible, it symbolizes strength. It is an animal that depicts the greatness and power of God, with its horn symbolizing power and authority. God spoke directly to Job about the strength of the unicorn, also known as a wild ox, in Job 39:9-11, which says, "Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by the crib? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow? Or will he harrow the valleys after thee? Wilt thou trust him, because his strength is great? Or wilt thou leave thy labor to him?" This reminds us of the greatness and power of God. If a creature can be that strong and fearless, then we can think of the Creator as an omnipotent one. The image is the same, whether the ram refers to a rhinoceros, an auroch, or another horned animal, that of an uncontrollable, ferocious, powerful wild animal. What we do know is that the mythological unicorn, the horse-like creature from fairy tales and fantasy literature, is not mentioned in the Bible. The Bible describes a real animal here,